This is £1,000 and I will give it to you, yes, you, if you win this bet. I will give you this £1,000 if you have never felt any time pressure in any exam. I'm waiting. Exactly. Now that is because exams are designed to make you feel time pressure. So how can we reduce that time pressure so that we can actually perform at our best? And that is what we're going to be covering in today's Top Tips in 10 Minutes video. This is a series where I'm going to give generalized advice for any exam board. And in fact, this video actually helps you with any subject. And this topic actually has one of my favorite tips that I've ever come up with. So stick around through the video because it's coming right up. But first, tip number 1. We have to calculate how many minutes we have to gain 1 mark. How do we do that? Well, it's actually super simple. All we have to do is look at the front page of a paper. And remember, this is in any subject because it will tell you what the total amount of time you have for that paper is. So you want to take that number and then look at how many marks the paper is worth. Take the time given. Let's take language paper 1, English AQA. You can see that it is time allowed 1 hour and 45 minutes. So let's convert that first into just minutes. Quick maths here, 105 minutes. So we now know that we've got 105 minutes. If you have extra time, obviously add that on here. We have 105 minutes where we can gain our 80 marks. The whole paper is worth 80. And this is actually where a lot of people go wrong because they don't factor in the time that they are going to be spending reading the questions, reading the extract, and planning any big mark questions. So what we need to do, and what I generally teach my students, is to always start with reading the questions first. Now, I'm going to do a deep dive video into how I would actually prepare to do the full paper from start to finish in another video. But for now, I would say to everyone, read the questions first. And I'm going to say that's going to take about 2 minutes. So we need to take 2 minutes off of that 105 minutes total because we can't get marks while we're reading the questions. Next, you need to also factor in how long it's going to take you to actually read the extract. So you have probably about 5 minutes to read and annotate that extract. So what does that mean? It means that we have to take that 5 minutes as well off of our total time. Following me so far? Then every single exam board in the later part of the paper gives you a big mark question. For AQA, it is 140 mark question, and that is in section B. You're going to want to spend 5 minutes planning that. So now you've got to factor in 5 minutes planning, 5 minutes reading the extract and doing your notes and annotations, and 2 minutes for reading the questions. So 12 minutes that you need to actually take off that 105 minutes total. So quick maths, what does that leave you with? 93 minutes. So we know that the total marks available for the paper are 80 marks. So it comes to 1 minute and 16 seconds for every single mark. So now we know the total amount of time that you have to get yourself a mark. This is where a lot of people make another little mistake. They might say to themselves, right, I'm doing really well on this question. I could write one more paragraph and do even better on it. And I'm feeling confident. I could do one more paragraph, right? But what happens if you've already gone over the time that you actually have to gain all the total marks in that particular question? Should you stop and move on to the next question, or should you continue and write that perfect paragraph? There is actually only one answer. You must stop and move on. And that actually leads me on to tip number 2. But first, I want you to do me a favor. If you are liking the video so far, please do consider subscribing to the channel, putting a like on the video, and leaving a comment. If you're finding it helpful, if there's anything you want me to go over, make clearer, anything you want me to cover in another topic, leave a comment and I will definitely get back to you. Okay, so tip number 2, here we go. This is my favorite tip that I've ever come up with. How do you keep track of time in the exam? Yeah, we know you've got a clock, but sometimes when you're in the middle of writing a question, you can kind of forget to check the clock and you don't know what time you started the question, right? So you can't calculate how long to spend on it. Well, let's change that. Why don't we write the time we start each question at the top of the page so we can actually keep track of the time? So let's take question 2 of this paper as an example. It is worth 8 marks. So we now know from our calculation we've got about 9 minutes to spend on it, right? So let's say we start question 2 at 9:10. Let's write that at the top because we can then plus our 9 minutes that we have to finish this question and we get 9:19 a.m. That is the time we have to finish. Remember, we cannot steal time from our later questions. At 9:19, whatever happens, I am stopping question 2 because I've still got question 3 to do. I've then got to do question 4. I've then got to do question 5. If I start stealing time, a little bit from question 1, a little bit from question 2, a little bit of time from question 3, I'm leaving my big 40 mark question 5 with less time than it deserves. So keep track of your time by writing what time you start the question at the top of the page. And keep checking the time. Check the time, check the clock halfway through paragraph 1. Check it at the end of paragraph 1. Am I on target? For question 2, I'm probably going to be writing 2 paragraphs. 9 minutes, I've got 4.5 minutes to write it. I will then know if it is 9:14.5 minutes, I'm perfectly on track. Maybe it's 9:16 and I know I need to finish it at 9:19. I now know, okay, it's going to be a slightly shorter second paragraph because I only have 3 minutes left and I cannot steal time from my later questions. I must finish it on time. And lastly, tip number 3, really easy, practice. Now that you know how long you have for each question in the exam, now that you've calculated it, practice to that time. There is no point you practicing for a mock or for the actual exam, let's say a question 2, which is worth 8 marks. There's no point ever practicing it at, say, 15 minutes. Saying to yourself, right, I'm going to give myself 15 minutes and I'm going to practice this question 2. You would never want to do that in the exam because you would be 6 minutes over your allotted time. Remember, 8 marks equals about 9 minutes. Think about it. There is no point at home preparing for a mock, preparing for an exam, practicing question 2 and giving yourself 15 minutes because you will never have 15 minutes in the exam to do that question. We now know you only have 9 minutes. It's an 8 marker. So practice every time you do question 2 with 9 minutes because that is going to train you. It's going to train your brain to get that question done in 9 minutes so you can move on, so you can control the time in the exam. Do not let the exam control you. You want to control it. And this tip here, all about time management, can actually be applied to any subject as well. Work it out from the total time you have to complete the exam. Look at the total marks for the paper, and then you can always work out how long do I have to gain 1 mark. If you enjoyed the video, if you learned something today, which I really hope you did, please do subscribe to the channel and like the video, even share it with a friend. We know everyone struggles with time management, so this could really help one of your friends get better at being in control of the exam, to get better at their time management. I've been Nick from Mastering Education. This has been Top Tips in 10 Minutes, and I'll see you in the next one.